Hi everyone, this is George. I just wanted to quickly say that this is probably going to be the last time you hear my voice for the next 35 or 40 minutes or so. Liam's not done editing the episode, but from what he told me, and I haven't heard it in a while, but from what he told me, apparently he just will not STFU during our episode on A Child is Waiting. So here's just a friendly reminder to rate, review, and subscribe wherever possible. iTunes, Stitcher, Instagram, Twitter, follow us, do all that stuff that people do on social media. Stop laughing. Oeuvre Busters. I'm going to have to do this all over again. And once again, thank you to Kevin MacLeod, who is not a Highlander, despite the name, from Incompetech. .com. So thank you, Kevin, for the music. Fuck. Yeah, of course.
I'm Liam Billingham.
I'm George Fragopoulos.
And this is
Oeuvre Busters.
And we are discussing
A Child is Waiting. Ooh.
Yeah, no, at least. Okay, we're back. So there is, but it's not because I cut. I should have paused. I did. I screwed it up. So, fuck. A child is waiting. A child
waiting for what?
Is waiting. John Cassavetes. Johnny Staccato.
We're actually going to try to get in contact, right, with the spirit of John Cassavetes.
Oh.
I'm assuming just perpetually drunk and, well, I was going to say heaven, but definitely hell.
No. Why is John Cassavetes in hell? Because he was an artist, George?
Because he's an artist. Because he suffered for his art.
Ugh, God, I'm out of here.
All the best artists are in hell.
Really? Who else?
Picasso.
Oh, well, yeah.
Yeah.
Michael Bay.
Michael Bay. A hell of his own making, if you ask me.
Transformers films.
Yeah. Also a hell of a...
Do you feel like a
hell of a good time.
When this show comes out, and we have millions of listeners, do you think someone's going to be like, hey, Mike, there's these two dudes that are just throwing shade at you all
and then
the
he's
time.
going to drone strike us, because I have a feeling that he has access to drones.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
Oh, God. Why didn't we see this coming?
That's
Especially
Michael Bay.
Since he made that, Benghazi movie.
Of course, yeah.
Starring Jack Ryan, not Ted Krasinski. Ted Kaczynski, starring the Unabomber.
That would be actually a Michael Bay film I could get behind.
Didn't they do a Unabomber miniseries?
I'm sure they did.
Manhunt, Unabomber, starring Avengers Paul Bettany.
You know what that Benghazi film couldn't do though, right? Is wash the blood off of Hillary's hands. Am I right?
You've really changed since you got that back injury in Fox News.
Hillary Clinton.
Hillary Clinton.
What do they call her on Fox News?
Hillary.
I've
never watched it.
Clinton.
I've never watched Fox News.
Yeah, the first part of it makes sense.
The first part of Fox News?
No. I was going to say that name. The second part, not so much.
I don't know.
The pun doesn't work.
It doesn't, but I don't know if we really expected our good puns or punditry from Fox News.
So you know who's waiting? Not only just a child,
but our listeners.
For us to get.
So let's talk about A Child is Waiting. Child is Waiting, 1962.
The last studio film.
The last studio film by John Cassavetes, produced by Stanley Kramer, who I think brought the film to him. He had no participation in the screenplay of this thing, but my understanding is that there was a little bit again of a clash between him and the studio.
So apparently there
on this film, he was really into improvisation. He really wanted to make a film that improvisation but he was dealing with a very, very different environment. I feel there's a little freedom in Too Late Blues. There's some digressions. There's the baseball scene. There's some other stuff going on. This movie is not like that.
It's not
at all. Well,
it's definitely a studio.
It's a studio film. So let me just read.
The cast, by the way, is amazing.
The cast is amazing. Let me read my first note to you.
Please do.
Which is the lion scared the shit out of me because I had my headphones jacked up and that MGM logo, and they really mixed that thing high.
Yeah.
I jumped 10 fucking feet. I jumped 10 fucking feet at literally one of the most iconic images in the 20th century.
You know it's coming.
Yeah, when you see that lion, you're like, oh, cool, it's going to roar. And I was like, oh, fuck me. Emily was like, what's wrong? And I was like, there's a lion at the beginning of this movie.
Did you know about this lion?
She was like, I'm going to go back to watching something else.
She's like, he's literally appeared in hundreds of other films.
That lion is...
Do you think he got paid scale?
I think he got paid in meat.
Oh, I see,
scaled meat.
I see what you did there. What the fuck? Scaled meat. So the lion scared you.
The lion scared me, but then I was even more awed and scared by the incredible cast of this film.
And how can
Burt Lancaster, who is apparently who John? Why do I do that?
Just kissing the mic, just making out. Liam, stop making out with the microphone.
Burt Lancaster apparently was who he wanted for Too Late Blues.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Mm-hmm, but
was that in the John Cassavetes textbook?
Yeah, Wikipedia. No, I think that's who it was. It's Burt Lancaster as Mr. Clark, the sort of the principal or the of a progressive school for kids with mental disabilities.
Sorry, I thought we were gonna make a. I thought we were going with the lion thing.
Burt Lancaster is the principal.
The attractive, sultry. Statuesque.
Great hair in that movie.
Oh my god, just
I want that hair. I kind of have that hair.
I want that hair, Liam. I want that hair. Fair enough.
Burt Lancaster.
I thought
insert bald joke here.
I thought we were gonna go with the lion thing. Was gonna just make some sort of Wizard of Oz joke because of the lovely Judy Garland. Who's in this film. And how can you have Judy Garland in the film and wait 90 minutes to get her to sing? Because she eventually does sing.
But it's not even that great. The singing isn't even that great.
Yeah, it's an hour.
It's weird also because when she sings, she's like, hey guys, do you want to hear a song from The Wizard of Oz, a film I was in? And everyone's like, what? And that was a John Cassavetes touch. He wanted this to be a movie about a washed up Judy Garland.
It's very meta.
Going to work at a school for intellectually disabled children.
I didn't also realize that she died that young.
She was very young.
47.
She looks a little older.
She looks a little older in here. Yeah.
So it's Burt Lancaster, Judy Garland. Giving what I think is the best performance in the entire film.
Correct.
Gina Rowlands.
Oh, as the mom.
Gina Rowlands. She was in Shadows, but this would probably be her most proper.
She has a substantial role in this one.
Debut in this film. Lawrence Tierney, who the only thing that I could think of that I've seen Lawrence Tierney in besides this is, not surprisingly, Reservoir Dogs.
That's right. Yeah.
And he plays her second husband, which we'll address. Anybody else in this movie?
No.
Marilyn Clark, who's briefly in... there's no other actors. Marilyn Clark, who's briefly
ironically, there's no children in A Child Is Waiting. They're just standing around.
It's really weird.
Where are the children? They're just going to call adults are waiting.
Mario Gallo, who plays the studio tech in Too Late Blues, plays a sort of a man who visits this children's hospital. This children's school, I should say. It's not a hospital. Let's talk about what this movie's about. It's about a little boy named Ruben.
Ruben. No. It's a prequel.
It's a prequel. So it's
Rupert's life story.
A Child Is Waiting is about a boy named Ruben, who in the opening scene, in the very powerful opening scene, is dropped off at a children's school by his father. What's significant about this scene is that it's very unclear. It becomes very clear, I should say, to the audience that Ruben does not know that he's being left there because his father drives off after Ruben gets out of the car. He's led out of the car to a cool little toy by Burt Lancaster, who then holds him when Ruben loses his mind as his father drives off. So the first scene we see Ruben being left at this children's school, and then we have opening titles that I'm pretty sure were done by David Fincher and Trent Reznor, because they are the scariest goddamn opening titles.
I'm glad you mentioned this. Well, no, they look
like the kid
creepy.
From The Omen drew these pictures, and then there's like kids singing over it. It's almost like a really scary version of the opening of You Can't Always Get What You Want.
Yeah, or perhaps
it's like
Rosemary's Baby.
Today, like what? Or Rosemary's Baby.
Which I actually
absolutely terrifying.
I still have the DVD. Thank you, Brooklyn Public Library, by the way.
I actually have the DVD.
Because this is... Liam, actually, it's technically, yes, now in Liam's possession.
I can't take anything out of the Brooklyn Public Library until I pay my $14 in fees on a Jean-Luc Godard book, I Am a Stereotype.
This is why we can't have full-blown communism, because of people like you, Liam. Were we talking about the creepy opening?
Creepy opening titles.
Oh, yes, I want to go back and kind of... You're right, just... overlay the music from Seven, the credits from Seven.
Fucking creepy, man.
On these drawings, because isn't there also like the creepy child? Like
there's a creepy drawing, and there's like a little kid like, and then my dad
Right.
Me too. And like it's a little insensitive, and it's actually a thing that an issue that I would draw with this entire movie. And listen, we're looking through sort of the lens of 2018 again when we look at a movie from 1962, but for a movie that in a way is fairly progressive about issues related to children with disabilities. People spend a lot of time in this movie gaping at disabled kids.
So I'm glad you said that too, because I was watching this and my partner was coming in and out of the room, and at some point
the dog.
No,
Marty.
Marty was like, "This film is kind of exploitive."
Now we should note that George's partner has specifically requested that she not be named.
Yeah. So was walking around.
Oh fuck!
She saw.
We're gonna bleep that out.
She saw, and she was like, "This movie's kind of exploitive." I was like, yeah, there are definitely moments where the camera lingers in a very kind of problematic way.
It is because the movie uses kids with actual disabilities,
which is fine. But I think the way in which they're presented, it's very. It can be.
It does seem a little groundbreaking, though. I would guess this hadn't happened before.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so it's interesting. And then I think the thing, so after you see this boy dropped off and these terrific Andrew Kevin Walker scripted David Fincher titles, we're introduced to
Judy Garland,
whose character's name is Mrs. Hanson.
I believe so. Let's go with that.
And she has shown up for an interview with Burt Lancaster,
correct.
Mr. Clark, played by Burt Lancaster, about a job.
And she's like a former.
She
like
is a
Juilliard,
failed musician.
She's a failed musician.
So another failed musician. She gets hired with no experience, and he basically is like, "Have you ever taught before?" And she's like, "Nope." And he's like, "Have you ever taught music before?" And she's like, "Nope." And he's like, "Have you ever worked with kids before?" And she's like, "What are kids?" And then he's like, "You're hired." So clearly, and this actually speaks to another issue that I have with the movie, is that there's a lot of talk, and we'll get to this. There's a lot of talk about his unorthodox methods. I don't think Burt Lancaster's only is that he's stern.
He's stern.
That seems to be the problem.
And
so Judy Garland gets hired,
Miss
and
Hanson,
very quickly, Ruben, the boy from the beginning of the film, becomes obsessed with her, won't leave her side, and they become very, very, very close. And then a little bit of time, there's sort of the first act, I would say, ends at a moment where Ruben brings Judy Garland to her home. To his bunk room,
yes.
And we're led to believe that it's been a couple of years that he's been here, and he asks her to write to his mommy and daddy, and then we cut forward in time,
right? Because I think like
and they're
2
closer
years?
now.
Somebody later on says like, "Oh, Ruben's been here for 2 or 4 years."
Ruben's parents haven't come to visit in 2 years. It's not that there's a jump in time of 2 years. She hasn't been there, employed there for 2 years, but maybe a few weeks after Ruben asks her to write to his mom and dad. So time jumps forward, and we now have a scene where it's a Wednesday afternoon at the school, and all the parents come to visit, and there's a montage. It's actually a pretty powerful sequence where some of the kids' parents show up. They try to tip one of the nurses, which I thought was really tragic and awkward. There's a family, an African American family, where I cringed a little because I was like, oh, the only African American family in this movie there's like 18 kids. But then it's addressed later. It's addressed in a more nuanced way later. But it felt a little like
what's the nuanced way? Totally
not that there's nuance later, but later the Burt Lancaster references the mom with 9 kids who you think would not be able to like handle this, but is probably the best parent of any of like very devoted to her son.
Is that like right before the pageant?
It's somewhere around there.
So I totally also forgot about there's this hilarious line where I think one of the other secretaries says of like Judy Garland, like, oh, she's just like a single woman in her 30s looking for trouble. Something
like that. She went to Brooklyn once.
Can you believe she's single?
Crazy. Yeah. So you got
what
this
is wrong with this woman?
What this whole sequence where so there's this whole scene
where
that's
this Wednesday scene and Ruben's parents don't come.
Ruben's parents don't come. He's standing there.
And then Judy Garland's like, oh, where are Rudy?
And that was one of the scenes I texted you earlier, jokingly, that I thought this film was a masterpiece, which I hate that expression, but also this movie is not a masterpiece. But it's really a tragic scene when there's these kids and their parents don't show up, and they're sort of standing there. It's really hard to watch.
So this is also, I mean, obviously we'll talk about what happens in the rest of the film, but this is also interesting because this is where Kramer and Cassavetes had apparently like the real falling out, where Cassavetes basically said like, oh, the film you see is a kind of more sentimentalized version of the film that I wanted to make. And one of the interesting things that the John Cassavetes textbook said was that apparently Cassavetes said something along the lines of like, "Oh, there's nothing wrong with these kids. It's the adults in their lives that are really fucked up." And that's not the film that he was able to make. So the film he made is the film that kind of like sentimentalizes both all of these characters and kind of like Judy Garland's relationship.
It's actually one of the central conflicts of the movie in that Burt Lancaster wants these kids to be in a place where they're going to be supported. And Judy Garland is like, no, they need to be part of the outside world with their parents. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think it's there in the conflict a little bit. That idea that like normality versus whatever disability is sort of a theme of the movie. So, I mean, I see John Cassavetes' point, but it's also like, no, you got that in the movie. It's a little sentimental.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think where it ends up, though, is this kind of really sentimental.
Maudlin.
Yeah. And that's also obviously a detriment to the film.
Oh, sure. However, I think that there's something interesting, if we're drawing parallels. This is oeuvre busters, not single movie busters.
But of course.
But once we find out that Ruben's parents haven't visited in 2 years, Judy Garland decides to get her hand on Ruben's file, and this sort of triggers a flashback sequence. A flashback sequence. 1992, ladies and gentlemen. Triggers a flashback sequence in which we meet Ruben's parents, and Ruben's mother is played by the great Gina Rowlands, who these are the most powerful scenes in the movie for me. When
just the two of them and their young parents,
and Ruben is laying in his crib, and Gina Rowlands is taking care of him, and the dad comes home from work, and she asks him like, "Why can't he crawl or walk or whatever?" And maybe it's my place in life right now, but I was like, "Oh, this movie is killing me." I wrote down that the parents' scenes felt very real.
Yeah, no, that is a good scene.
Yeah. It's a very good scene.
And obviously they pull it off as actors. And I don't think it's kind of over sentimentalized.
Not at all. And I think that there's again a power. There is a power to this scene. The question, why can't he walk like the other kids, is, and you see this kid laying there. But it's so, that was me I was just starting my motorcycle and I gotta do this.
Are you gonna do the rest of this on your Ducati?
Yeah, I am.
That's amazing. I wanted to comment that you just have that parked here in the middle of your living room, but
well, I do like circles.
I thought that was just not a polite thing to do. I am your guest.
I know, it's true. So I found it very moving, and again, it's a nice moment where she's like, "Why can't he crawl like the kid down the street can crawl?" And I think a movie that was more controlled by John Cassavetes, you'd have this thing playing under, like this sort of feeling that there's something wrong with Ruben playing underneath, but in Stanley Kramer fashion, there's like a little bit of like, he's fine. Like it's sort of, I feel like it's over-explained. It's over-talked about. I don't know that in the John Cassavetes movies they would outright express this stuff, at least at this era of his career. Though I think we should come back to this movie when we talk about A Woman Under the Influence. For a couple reasons. One reason is because they both deal with like, one much more successfully than the other, with the idea of like, are people insane, or is the society that is created around them insane? Which obviously A Woman Under the Influence handles that in a much more dynamic way. Have you seen A Woman Under the Influence?
I've not. I'm actually really excited to see it because I know it's one of the best, or considered
one of the hardest to watch. But there's a whole idea that like, well, I want you to watch it, but a central idea of it is, to me at least, is like, what is insanity? Or what is disability? Like, there's the whole idea of like the other in John. I would say there's a whole idea of like intellectual disability, some kind of insanity, some kind of mental issue. For John Cassavetes, I think he's very much an individualist. I think he's like, no, it's not people, it's the society, the space and the society they occupy. And that movie deals with this, perhaps in a less successful way, then, and also the presence of Gina Rowlands, who's the fucking best.
She's awesome.
She's incredible in this movie.
And she's only on screen for about 15 minutes.
20 minutes. She's amazing. But I also think it's interesting and very Hollywood that, not Hollywood, but they did not. So there's the kid Ruben in the movie does not have what you would describe as the classic symptoms of mental retardation. He doesn't appear to have Down syndrome. He doesn't have like the sort of that thing that we commonly associate.
He seems to only have like a speech impediment
and some kind of intellectual disability. But it's interesting if there was any discussions about working with a kid who was more extreme in that regard. It's an interesting question of representation in the movie. I'm sure that wouldn't have flown, but it's an interesting kind of thing.
And then there's the scene, the picnic scene.
So the picnic scene.
Yeah.
So we sort of see Ruben's diagnosis. We see his father drop him off, and it does this nice thing where it cuts to this flashback sequence that begins with concerns about Ruben's diagnosis, and then Ruben being dropped off at the school. The final shot of this flashback is the first shot of the movie, which is a great opening shot. The first shot of this movie, the first scene of this movie is phenomenal, but the first shot of this movie is, if the rest of the movie had been as strong as that opening shot, chef's kiss.
A masterpiece, perhaps.
Masterpiece. But then we move back to where the present tense.
Presents?
Present.
Yeah.
The present. At a picnic. And this is a moment, all the kids are at a picnic. They're having a good time.
Like Burt Lancaster and Judy Garland kind of have like a moment together.
They bond. They eat hot dogs and drink Coke, and a weird love triangle emerges.
Because Ruben comes over, and it gets very Oedipal. Ruben's like
watching Judy Garland, shaking his head
disapprovingly.
A little bit of like the mother and the whore thing. Mother and the whore in the sense that like there's a mom in this, and there's a whore in Too Late Blues. It's like in the sense that like he's still playing. He kind of plays the perception of this kid in those archetypes. That kid's looking for a mom.
But totally. And again, the sentimental thing or the sentimental arc is where clearly Judy Garland becomes the mom to... She does. Because Jen Rowlands' character... Rowlands.
Get at us, Twitter.
She comes back towards the end of the film when... What is she... Judy Garland writes to her.
Judy Garland writes to Jenna Rowlands because she really wants Ruben to see his mom.
Correct.
But she doesn't tell... She tells him that he's sick.
He's sick or something, that she needs to come. And she does. And...
We should note...
That's also really... Oh, sorry, go ahead.
We should note that at the end of the picnic scene, everyone gets driven back to the school, and Burt Lancaster watches Judy Garland walk in with Ruben, and the camera lingers on him looking concerned or suspicious. And in the next scene, we find out that she's been reassigned to a new... she's been reassigned to a new sort of children's house. One of the she's been working in the house that Ruben lives in, and now she's in a different place. So that sort of sets up a conflict. And very soon after that, there's a scene where Judy Garland asks why she's been moved, and Burt Lancaster tells her like, "You're too close to this kid," which I agree with. Like their relationship in this entire movie is inappropriate.
I agreed.
It's not.
Yeah,
like, I was kind of like from the beginning, like, ooh, okay, lady, come on. Like, I mean, I know, and that makes them that you know, from a traditional standpoint, that's something that makes the movie work less well for me. I believe that she's a little unbalanced.
Did you also, by the way, notice? I don't know if it's in that. I don't think it's in that scene, but there's this one scene where they're in the classroom. And did you notice what was written on the blackboard? It was like, is Jack Torrance a student of this school? On the blackboard, written repeatedly, it says, "We'll kill the old red rooster when she comes." And it's written like 5 or 6 times across his back.
I didn't notice that.
Across his blackboard.
Weird.
I was like, that's creepy.
Wow. Yeah, I did not notice that. Something I did notice, if we're pausing to notice things that we noticed, is Judy Garland is almost entirely lit with very soft light in this movie. Even in scenes where everyone else is lit in like much more natural lighting.
Was that her request?
It'll be like Burt Lancaster, and you'll see his features and his jawbone and all these things, and then it'll cut to Judy Garland, and she's like basically an angel. She's like, it's like you don't see any of her skin. I don't know. I mean, we talked about how she looks a little older. Is it her request? I'm not sure, but it does not match, and it drove me a little nuts because I do think it was probably a request.
Yeah.
I bet she was like, no, I don't want my 45-year-old self to be. I don't know. It's an interesting kind of thing. So she writes a letter to Ruben's mother, played by Jenna Rowlands. That's what we're going with.
Yeah, why not?
We should look that up before Woman Under the Influence.
Should really nail it down.
And she shows up thinking that something is wrong with Ruben, and in fact there is nothing wrong with Ruben. And she's like, he just wanted to see you. And Jenna Rowlands says, it's a very powerful scene where she's like, do you think because I don't visit my son I don't love him? And it's a pretty powerful moment, because she's like, I do love him, but I need him to
be taken care of.
Right.
And then she gives this impassioned speech about, do you know what it's like to kind of take care of a child like this? Do you know what it's like to take care of him at different parts of his life?
It's powerful because this movie is a little bit like trying to get a message out there, and this is the only scene where it doesn't feel like...
Correct. Yeah.
Like belabored, because she's awesome. Such a good actress.
Yeah, she totally fucking nails it.
Yeah, I thought that was really good. And again, the wrong person in the scene is Judy Garland. Everyone is like, why did you call his mother? She doesn't want to see him. And in fact, he sees her, and Ruben sees her, and he loses his mind, which leads to him actually leaving the facility. He runs away and is sort of like out by himself overnight.
Well, there's also this pretty hilarious scene where Ruben comes across these other kids playing a football game. Another great like impromptu sporting event in the Cassavetes film. But did you notice how like the one kid gets hurt and they literally like drag him off the field, and then they point to Ruben like, "Hey, you come in."
Yeah, that's
it's like
true.
It's your turn. And he just kind of like gets in there and
he doesn't really know what he's
and
doing.
Doesn't know what he's doing.
He
and
tackles a kid, so he does like good there.
Yeah, and then
then he doesn't know how to hike the ball.
Right, and he gets like again kicked off the field. But it's this hilarious scene where they like drag the corpse of this kid off.
Yeah, it's
like, hey, you come back. You're good to go.
Do you feel like this is so up to this point? I have to say I was pretty taken by this movie, but I would say that around the point when Ruben runs away is when it really started to fall apart for me. And part of that is I think because like there's 20 minutes of this movie where you forget that Judy Garland is in it, because it shifts more to Burt Lancaster, it shifts more to Ruben, it shifts more to Ruben's family. Like all of a sudden you're like, oh yeah, she sort of becomes on the peripheral of the movie, which is good because she's been wrong the entire movie. Right. She doesn't know what she's talking about.
I gotta be honest, I was kind of bored throughout this entire film.
I did check my phone a bunch of times.
I was also really really happy that the DVD just happened to crap out for a good 10 or 15 minutes of it.
So what'd you miss?
So did yours not?
No, it didn't.
Oh, you lucked out.
I got the...
So I was...
Did I?
I was... Oh, I don't know. Maybe you didn't. Maybe I lucked out. Well, which is exactly what I was saying. I lucked out. No, mine crapped out for like right at the end of the picnic scene. It kind of like it just fucked up, and then I had to skip about 10 or 15 minutes of it.
That's crazy. I had no problem.
I had to fast
so
forward
what'd you
one of the
miss?
chapters. Well, how would I know?
Well, where did you come back?
The John Cassavetes textbook. It does not actually.
Where
have
did
a
you?
very good...
Where did you come back in?
I came back in
10 or 15 minutes is a lot of this movie. It's only 100 minutes long.
It's 100. Yes. Yeah. No, it was because it's funny. You should say that too, because I both was bored, and then at the end I was like, oh, that actually went by fairly quickly. It was like, well, yeah,
it cut out 10 minutes.
15 minutes.
You're like, wait a minute, he had a mom? Ruben had a mom?
It's like, what? What's going on? Yeah, I don't. I honestly, why can't I fucking remember this film? Maybe just because I did not enjoy it.
I remember because I watched it last night.
So then what?
Just
happened?
so y'all know, I watched it last night.
So then they have this. Ruben's mom has a speech. She leaves, and then the mom.
Ruben's mom has got it going on.
For all you,
she's dealing with sadness, and she's doing pretty good.
Fountains of Wayne.
Thank you. Yes. Thank you.
Earlier Ben Folds reference, Fountains of Wayne reference.
We're really hitting
9 Inch Nails.
Yeah,
we're living the 90s.
Living the 90s. So, all those bands are still around, though. I think.
9 Inch Nails definitely is.
Yeah.
And Ben Folds.
Yeah, he's rocking the suburbs.
The suburbs.
I am rocking the suburbs.
I am Ben Folds.
I am Ben Folds 5.
So then, yeah, and then the pageant happens. So then Judy Garland is getting them ready, or getting some of the kids ready for this Thanksgiving pageant.
Yeah, so Ruben comes back. There's this whole sequence where...
Doesn't Burt Lancaster find him?
Burt Lancaster... Well, the police find him, and then Burt Lancaster goes... Burt Lancaster goes back to the police station, and that's where we see the saxophone player from Too Late Blues, presumably not playing the saxophone player from Too Late Blues.
Didn't you notice the saxophone in the corner?
It is in the John Cassavetes cinematic universe, the JCCU.
He says to Burt Lancaster's character, like, I wish I was playing that saxophone right there. But unfortunately,
I can't.
I can only do that on
Why
the
are you
side.
walking away? Yeah, and meanwhile, or after that, Judy Garland teaches for the first time, because she never teaches in this movie. And
or you see her teach for the first time.
You see her teach, and the kids, she decides to do a Thanksgiving pageant.
You know what, Liam? She taught me how to love. Wasn't she teaching throughout the entire film?
So she's teaching. I mean, we're all teachers, George.
Are we not?
Not
literally,
2020.
Actually, yeah.
So she decides to do a Thanksgiving pageant, cast some of the kids as Indians, cast some of the kids as settlers. We're calling them settlers. Yeah. And then we jump forward in time. Also, we spend a little time here with Ruben's parents. Ruben's dad, who's an architect, workaholic, back in the picture, hasn't seen his son in years, goes to visit Gina Rowlands while he's missing. And she's like, you need to be more a part of his life. And he's like, I'm going to pay for private care for Ruben. We're going to get him out of that school. and then he meets with Burt Lancaster's assistant, who, in a nice little moment, coming much too late in the movie for us to really feel it all that well, says that he has a 28-year-old daughter with intellectual disabilities.
Yeah, well, there are moments earlier in the film that make him sympathetic. Like there was the moment, remember, where he's playing, I think, football with the kids, and they're kind of like chasing him.
Well, it's not Burt Lancaster who I'm talking about. I'm talking about his assistant, who's a 28-year-old.
Oh, the assistant. That's right. God, it's fucking film.
He's maybe had 3 lines in this thing. It's ridiculous. I got Marty. Can you please?
Even Marty's disappointed with me.
He's shaking his eyebrows.
Marty, please.
He's shaking his eyebrows at you.
God.
Shake Your Eyebrows podcast with Marty Scorsese. But so
Marty, I'm not the one that made Bringing Out the Dead. All right.
I like Bringing Out the Dead.
How dare you? I've never seen it. I'm just talking shit.
God, this is just getting worse. Like a child is waiting. This podcast is devolving.
You know what our listeners are waiting for? The end.
So, you know what's interesting is the whole time I was like, and listen, this is a progressive movie. I think it's admirable that it tries to deal with what it deals with, and namely, like, probably a time in America when like a lot of the issues related to children and disabilities were probably not really taken seriously. This movie sought to bring that into the world, but it plays a little bit like a high school play, which is interesting because it ends with a school play.
But I felt like throughout the entire film, it felt like a high school play. It
Yeah,
felt
I
like
think
a
it did.
really bad Lifetime movie. That's why it was like, I was not convinced about
it. Mostly was pretty bad. Yeah. Some nice moments, powerful moments, but overall, yeah, a little bit like Lifetime.
Definitely
Lifetime.
Powerful moments, just again because the
and
actors
I don't
are
want
so
to shit on
amazing.
Lifetime. I saw Goodfellas on Lifetime once.
Not
entirely.
Goodfellas.
Goodfellas. I saw Goodfellas on Lifetime
They
once.
played it on
Yeah,
Lifetime?
they had this thing in the summer that was like Bad Neighbor Week. I shit you not.
That's amazing.
And they showed
Who's
Goodfellas.
the bad neighbor in Goodfellas?
Well, he beats the shit out of his neighbor because the neighbor like takes Lorraine Bracco.
That
for
is
a
like
ride.
the
it's very
that is like
loose.
the
Marty,
weakest
Marty,
connection.
what were you thinking when you agreed to? Oh, it was for the money. It was for the money. He did it for the money. So this, again, de-evolution. Yes, it ends with the school play, and Ruben has a bunch of lines in the play. I don't really understand what he's saying, but he says quite a bit, and it turns out his father is there, and they have a reconciliation at the end. And also, in addition to this reconciliation, a new boy shows up, and Judy Garland is sent by Burt Lancaster to bring this little boy in, thus illustrating that she's become a full-time member of the staff there and is a trusted member of the school.
Correct. The end.
The end.
And that also
Cue terrifying
pictures. No.
David Fincher-esque, scripted by Kevin Walker, scored by Trent Reznor sequence. It is fucked.
Does it go back to the pictures?
Yes.
It does, right?
I didn't sleep last night.
It is nightmare fuel.
It is gloriously inappropriate.
Maybe I just blocked it out because it was far too traumatic.
Woo. So there you go. There you have it.
Who do you think wanted those in? You think that was like Stanley Kramer's? Like, you put those pictures in.
We need
those
them.
creepy fucking pictures.
Like, so would you recommend this movie?
No. The end.
I'm a bit of a completist. I in some ways liked it more than Too Late Blues, but I don't.
4 or 5 episodes of Johnny Staccato.
Johnny Staccato.
Yeah, I'm just counting the.
How many Johnny Staccatos I would rate this as 2 Johnny Staccatos, whereas I would rank Too Late Blues as 3 Johnny Staccatos out of a possible 27 because there's 27 episodes of Johnny Staccato.
Without question.
Husbands is 26 Johnny Staccatos.
No, I listen. I do think it. I do think what makes our podcast interesting, if anything,
nothing.
The end. It's not us.
What makes us interesting?
Watching everything sequentially, chronologically, and being completist is a fascinating project, and it does.
I would never have watched these movies
correct,
otherwise.
And that's why I think.
Don't tell me correct.
Sorry. Are you still hurt about Bringing Out the Dead? I'm sorry, Marty. I'm sorry. I just wanted to say something hurtful. It's a great.
Yeah, I mean, you could have gone after
John
Kundun.
Goodman, right? John Goodman.
You could have to go Kundun.
Nick Cage.
Yeah, Ving Rhames.
Is John Goodman in it?
I don't remember. I haven't seen it in 20 years. I haven't seen it since it came out. I saw it the weekend it came out.
Anyway,
I had a lot of friends in high school.
Isn't that the film? That's the film, right? Where Nick Cage.
He's a paramedic.
Right on the plane with John Malkovich and.
Yeah, that's correct. And Ving Rhames and Steve Buscemi. Put the bunny in the box.
Put the bunny
School
down.
is hard.
Wait, is.
Remember when he writes a letter to his kids? We're talking about Con Air now. School is hard, but you gotta keep going. For example, I broke a guy's nose because he made fun of my wife. I'm a model citizen.
Right, that's exactly what prison's like. I mean, that's what I had to do in prison to survive. Didn't is Ving Rhames also in Con Air?
Yeah, he's
He is,
Diamond Dog.
Shit, fucking shared cinematic universe.
The Jerry Bruckheimer cinematic universe.
Well, with Martin Scorsese, the great.
Oh, he's dead again. Dead again.
He's been listening.
So you
to
would
us,
not
that's why.
recommend
I
watching
would
this
not-
movie?
Maybe only for completists.
Okay, for completists, yes. For everyone else, no.
But if you're
Thematic,
completist,
where
don't
do
you
you-
have
where
to
do you-
then just watch
Fine,
everything?
it's fine. Well, we're not watching all 5 episodes of Johnny Staccato that he directed,
You're
or
you're
are
lost.
we?
I mean, I already did.
Really?
Yeah. Mine.
Man, you've had a great Yom Kippur week.
Just me and Johnny Staccato.
So, not to, we should probably wrap this up because God. But
I'm
exhausted.
Thematically,
what do you see of John Cassavetes? I mentioned
the focus on family, I think, is interesting, and obviously
non-traditional families.
Yeah, well, husbands I mean, I'm thinking about like both how husbands is not about family and very much also about family.
It's about the absence of family.
And one can clearly also make the argument that Too Late Blues is also about a family.
Yeah.
That again, like, kind of falls out. There's falling out, and there's kind of reconciliation at the end. So those kind of connections, I think, are there. But yeah, this is clearly not a Cassavetes. And also, kind of as you said earlier, is kind of the plight of the outcast, or the plight of the outsider.
Which is going to be a big part of what we're going to look at going forward.
Totally.
I think there's a lot of questions about conformity and authority and those things coming in the next few movies. But yes, I'd give it a miss unless you're absolutely committed to this thing.
And don't tell the Brooklyn Public Library, but I'm going to destroy this DVD.
Don't do that. The physical media, man.
It's fucking, this movie's, God, it's fucking...
It's not that bad. It's not that bad.
No, it wasn't that
all right,
bad.
is there anything else we want to add to our talk on...
Yeah, I take everything back, and I'm sorry to anybody listening.
We apologize. We apologize after the fact. Next up, Faces.
Ooh,
Faces.
Actually, now this is where
you get
shit
excited.
gets turned back up again. Yes.
So we're going Faces, and then we got Husbands.
Let's do it. Faces. Women Under the Influence. After
no, Faces. Faces in 1967, and then Husbands. 1970. So and then maybe we'll sneak in
the Dirty Dozen.
But maybe we'll save that. I don't know. Maybe we should talk about this off air.
Which I told you also is like ground zero for
Greek American cinema.
Cinema with Telly Savalas and fucking John Cassavetes.
Amazing stuff.
Something better would have been if they actually turned to each other and say something in really terrible Greek.
Wait, I'm confused though. Wouldn't Nick Boublinas be the zenith of Greek American cinema?
Or the Nader?
Ooh, Nader.
Nader.
How do you say it?
I think it's Nader. How do you say oeuvre busters?
It doesn't matter. We're gonna find out because we're gonna record our title
and we'll get
right
tweets.
now. Thanks for listening. Love you.
Don't lie to them. You're Liam Billingham.
I'm George Fragopoulos.
No, this isn't Call Me By Your Name.
All right.
I mean, Bobby D did Rocky Bullwinkle for the art.
Okay, we're back. You thought we were gone, but we're back after George's Rocky and Bullwinkle joke.
Joke? To lose that
Hi.
term
So,
lightly.
Oof. So, since we've launched the show, we've gotten a few nice reviews and an email or two, and I thought it'd be fun to talk a little bit about those.
Thank you all, by the way, for
thank you so much, for getting on it and following the show on its various platforms. So we have 7 ratings on iTunes.
Wow, I checked earlier today and there are only 6.
Yeah, and we have 5 stars, 7 5-star ratings.
Solid.
Thank you, Mom, sister, other sister, brother-in-law.
I can't.
George's mom.
That's a lot of stars.
But we also got 2 written reviews.
Let's read them.
Let's read them. So I'll read the first one. It's titled "An Oeuvre Under the Influence."
Ooh.
It's by Doubt J, and it's 5 stars. And it says thorough, thoughtful conversations on Cassavetes, perfect for film nerds and John junkies. I'll be tuning into the next episode for sure. This was written by my friend Joseph.
Aw,
yeah, he's a nice
Joe.
guy, but I think he would only write it if he meant it. So it's not like
Of
a
course.
pity review.
He's totally sincere.
Joseph is the works at Bushwick Film Festival and does programming. So
Nice.
he's in the biz. Cool guy,
Well,
very
I mean,
nice.
We're in the business right now, too.
Thank you,
Just in a
Joseph.
different way.
Joseph for doing that, and I hope you like the show still. I hope that your feelings about the show haven't changed.
May you live a long life.
Do you want to read review number 2?
I do want to read. Oh shit!
Why are you yelling?
I'm just worried because now people are gonna find that I actually can't read.
Sure. Can you just read it?
This is from Peter Rock with an
Pete
exclamation
Rock.
point. Actually Pete Rock. Sorry, say I can't read. From November 20th. They're starting at the top. I love that they're starting with the greatest, John Cassavetes. I love that they're talking about these films in a loose way with humor. I'm putting that in quotation marks.
He put it in quotation marks and then put a middle finger.
Humor and without pretense. JC would approve. Jesus Christ.
Mm-hmm.
We're a religious podcast. We'll see if my love is still there when they get to love streams, but I bet it is. Rock on, guys. That's really nice.
Now you
Thanks,
called
Pete.
this review vaguely threatening, and I don't know why.
I did, yeah. Well, because it says, we'll see.
Do you think it's like going to be a hostage situation?
We'll see if my love is still there when they get to love streams. But I'm just also realizing that might just be also a pun.
Yeah, it could be.
Yeah.
We'll see.
But thanks, Pete. Appreciate it.
Yeah, so Pete is Peter Rinaldi.
And the many loves.
Who hosts an amazing podcast. What are you talking about?
Sorry.
Peter hosts an amazing podcast called Back to One where he interviews actors. And he just interviewed Willem fucking Dafoe.
Whoa.
Yeah, he interviewed Willem Dafoe.
The Green Goblin himself?
See, when I said actors, you were like, who is he interviewed? Yeah. And I was like, he just interviewed Willem Dafoe. Let me just read a quick list of the people, because I subscribe and listen to Peter's podcast. He had on Melissa Leo, Willem Dafoe, Chloe Grace Moritz, Ben Foster, Bo Burnham, Jim Cummings, who follows us on Twitter, Catherine Hahn, who's like a living legend, Ashley Atkinson, was in BlacKkKlansman and is like Brooklyn's own. Raul Castillo, who's incredible. Topher Grace. It's the best podcast I've ever listened to on acting. It's amazing.
And what's it called again?
It's called Back to One, and it's produced by Filmmaker Magazine. So
I mean, that's impressive. But I mean, we have
Marty Scorsese. Yeah, sorry. So did you get Marty Scorsese for your podcast, Peter?
I know. Yeah.
Finally, we got an email from Joseph Rangeli. Joe is a Brooklyn native son. This is my favorite Brooklynite. He's a film lover, a filmmaker, and he sent us the poster for a film called The Incubus. It's a
film from 1982.
The film from 1982. It was directed by
not John Cassavetes, but he
John
stars
Ho,
in it.
And he stars in it. And the poster, which we'll post on social media,
it's fucking amazing. Actually,
says the dreams, the nightmares, the desires, the fears, the mystery, the revelation, the warning, the incubus.
And then below that,
what does it say, George?
He is the destroyer.
Wow.
Deep.
So, interesting fact. Go ahead.
Oh no, I just quickly read the description of it on the John Cassavetes.
What is it? What's the description of it?
It sounds like batshit crazy. It's about it's about a demon who apparently goes around raping women, and it's supposed to potentially. Somebody said, one of the reviewers said something like, "Oh, it might be like this interesting kind of treatise on male violence against women," but it just
perfectly fitting with the Cassavetes.
Yeah,
canon.
but apparently it doesn't do that. It's just kind of a really bad horror film.
Also, apparently, it was his last film appearance, and he was dying. He just found out he was dying, and apparently his stomach is distended, and he looks like an alcoholic. Should we do a bonus on that?
Maybe.
All right. Well, I think we wrap it up there. Thank you very much for
bearing with us,
for sending in your posters, your reviews. Please keep reviewing, rate, review, subscribe. Uverbusters on Twitter, Uverbusters on Instagram.
Also, again, we only collect our hate mail at Fox News headquarters. So if you have anything
please send
negative
it there
to say about us,
snail
mail.
Still directed to Megyn Kelly.
Yeah.
And then if you'd like to get in touch beyond that, uverbusters@gmail.com. Uverbusters. All right. Thank you very much.
Thanks, guys.
Talk soon.
Bye.
Love you.